Hi. So today I want to expand on a number of themes discussed in Fuzzy on the Dark Side, particularly related to politics and conflation, what I call politics and conflation. Um, it is related to approximate thinking as developed in Fuzzy on the Dark Side. And basically, the big argument or the big idea is that some concepts, some themes are a little bit too complex, too difficult for us to properly understand. And so, what we do is we use simpler, more simplified versions of them. But this simplification frequently passes through our own identities, our own past, our own preferences. And so here what is happening is that we start seeing the world partly as a reflection of our identity. We start approximating things in such a way that they would go better with our identity. So what I wanted to talk about today is a couple of examples that I shared on social media, the reactions on them, and how these reactions proved to be some kind of, well, it's definitely not systematic, not scientific, but some kind of validation to the ideas originally being discussed. So let me tell you about the two examples first, and then we'll see how they reflect approximate thinking and how even the responses reflect approximate thinking. So the first was Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand's in particular, I was talking about Atlas Shrugged. I was talking about this book that it is ridiculously successful. Okay, and I, on purpose, I mentioned that I didn't read a book. I read some of her other books. I watched the films for this one, and I insisted not to read the book because I am not creating a philosophical or literary critique of the book. What I actually care about is try to understand why is this book like the second most distributed book after the Bible. It's if you remove the Bible, it's the most successful book in terms of distribution. And my argument here was that it cannot be because of the literary or intellectual merits of the book. And anybody who has read any of the other books or who knows what the idea is about knows that it is kind of childish, somehow incomplete, half-baked, and it is not the proper thinking of subtle and well-formed thought, right? The book doesn't have so much merit. So why is it so successful? My argument is that it happens to be a reflection, an expression of the identity of so many people. How did this happen? Well, it happened gradually over time. But, you know, Ayn Rand's books, Atlas Shrugged, it's an expression of my identity. I took a few screenshots a while back of people saying that this should be required reading in high school and so on. Well, why? Because it is this expression of identity. This was the first example, Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged. The second example was Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. And what I asked here is, well, okay, Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, but why is it that so many people seem to conflate slavery, abolishing slavery, with equality? Okay, and I shared a few quotes from Lincoln in which he explicitly talks about how opposed he is to equality and this wrong concept and so on. Now, I do acknowledge that people are products of their times, but this is exactly what I'm saying. People are products of their times. So why are there so many people who seem to worship Lincoln? What he did was a political step that had political implications. It was not an act of prophecy or a divine God. An act of divine intervention. Sorry. So there were political / economic factors behind his decision. This is all what I was saying. What was interesting is that both these examples that I used as examples to explore concepts related to approximate thinking, concepts being developed in Fuzzy on the Dark Side, caused so much anger, right? There were uh, the posts caused some people to, and there were others who commented saying it's really entertaining to watch the amount of anger. What was interesting is that it so happened by chance, I didn't design it, anger came from two different sides of the political spectrum, each trying to defend their own version of God, which they uh, which passes through their identity, but they want everybody else to believe that this is just objective truth. What Ayn Rand is saying is so perfect and true that it warrants her fame. And what Abraham Lincoln did was an act of moral purity. My argument was simply that doesn't seem like it. There seems to be a lot of conflation happening here. So a lot of anger, people shouting at each other, at me, and I had to use some of the principles of should you call someone an idiot on social media article that I wrote a while back, because some people are just beyond fixing, beyond arguing. So sometimes you just have to call someone an idiot, sadly. But so yeah, it happened that each of these examples angered one side of the political spectrum. And this was quite interesting, because in itself, this anger, the inability to discuss ideas, these are ideas, these are hypotheses. I'm saying that the 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 fame and reach of Ayn Rand's books is cannot be explained by the quality of her thinking. This is a hypothesis, a very hard to a very hard to negate hypothesis, but it still made people angry. And similarly, I was saying that Abraham Lincoln's act of abolishing slavery was a political act. It doesn't mean that he believed in equality, and this is the proof. A, B, C, D. There was one particular person who said, "You have a hidden agenda behind denigrating Abraham Lincoln." And so I said, "Well, where did I denigrate him?" And there was no like pointing out a particular sentence in the article or something. There was just a repetition of the previous phrase: "You people want to destroy the country," etc., etc., etc. What's happening again here is that these are identities speaking. So we have approximate ideas of some things, and these approximate ideas are colored by our identities, and identities are very powerful. And so when the topic is complex, when it requires a nuanced approach, many people perceive these concepts, these ideas as too difficult. Well, they don't consciously do that. Unconsciously, they perceive the ideas as difficult, and so what they do is they automatically replace the idea with an approximate replica. And as I said, this approximate replica is colored by their own identity. Well, because difficult conversations, complex discussions require mental effort. And I frequently tell students the number one motivation for so many acts is that your brain is trying to make their life easy. So nobody has time for deep thinking, for reflecting. And so the identity just steps in, approximates things. And, this is why identities tend to be much more confident than scientists. Scientists talk about confidence intervals, talk about uncertainty, talk about the possibility of positive errors, and so on. While you have these people who talk with so much confidence that it's actually beautiful. It's amazing. Well, it's ridiculous, but it's beautiful. And here I encountered a quote by Chesterton last week, and he was talking about tolerance, and he said that the tolerance person, something to the extent of the tolerant person, is the person who doesn't believe in anything. And this was kind of beautiful. Well, I commented that it was a bit too much. I would qualify that statement a little bit, and I would say that, well, the tolerant person is the person who acknowledges the uncertainty in the world says, well, I'm not sure of this. And this kind of opposes this concept of the overconfidence of the idiot. The idiot is the one who is overconfident because he doesn't see the truth. If you want to see the truth, there will be an element of uncertainty associated with that, because the truth has so many faces. If you are so confident about something you're not sure of, well, this makes sense then that you are probably defending some kind of position. And this position is usually your identity. You are defending the identity in such a way that you are practically saying, I don't want to change. I don't want to understand new facts or update my perspective, update my vision of the world.